Bismillah, alhamdulillah, assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Badruddin Muhammad,
My name is Talha Rafiq.
and together we run the College Muslim podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about our experiences growing up in a primarily all-Muslim country throughout high school and college, and kind of life lessons and the coping strategies that we've used to navigate that. And just to show you all that y'all aren't alone. That's the whole point of this podcast. So inshallah, today's topic is going to be
Grudges. So we're going to be talking about holding grudges, what kind of impact that has on the person holding the grudge, what kind of impact, mainly about the impact of the person who's holding the grudge. That's pretty much our main conversation today. And how a lot of college and high school students kind of...
And the lack of impact that it has on the person you're holding a grudge about.
Yeah. So like how it impacted you a lot more than it should be, and how there's not a really qualitative good reason as to why you should be holding a grudge. And that's just something that we should talk about when it comes to high school and college, because there's a lot of opportunities to hold a grudge against someone.
Definitely.
And there's a lot of like times where we will possibly hold a grudge against someone. And just doing that in general, it's something that hurts your heart, hurts your soul, hurts your mind, and
no benefit.
And there's no benefit to it. And it just happens a little bit too often for us not to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like, especially, with kind of links back to our last episode too, with like backbiting and also hypocrisy and those things, like when those are inflicted upon you, it's very easy to hold a grudge. And there's two ways to do it. You can either blow up at someone and just get it all out, or which you can do, but most people don't do, and most people are like, I myself, because like sometimes you're just afraid of that confrontation. So the opposite of that is you just bottle it in, and it hurts. It hurts a lot, and it does nothing for the other person. It doesn't. You try to do it to hurt the other person, but it's just hurting you.
Yeah, and in a way, blowing up and letting it all out comes back down like to the other topics, like backbiting, and maybe a future topic about like outright anger.
Yeah,
but specifically about this is going to be like holding it in. What kind of effect that has on you, and
how to deal with it,
and how to let go of it, and how to like kind of move on from it, so that you live a life where you're able to use Islam as a conduit to get rid of that, and then just live a better life in the dunya,
for sure,
and then in preparation for the akhirah. So let's just jump right into it. The very first thing, as usual, that we'd love to do is kind of define what we're talking about, and talk about like what exactly is the issue we're addressing.
I think this one is a much easier one to define, just because I feel like everyone can hold a grudge, whether it like you are possible. Everyone has a capacity to hold a grudge, whether it be on a small level or a big level. So I feel like we all know what it's like. It's kind of just like you have this feeling inside of your heart where you feel as if someone has wronged you, or you feel bad towards someone. You feel negatively when you hear a person's name, when you see a person, and that just festers inside of you without any escape. Do you have anything to add on to that?
No, I mean, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah,
it's not quite like it's conceptually not that hard to understand. It's not letting it, like having it build up inside.
I feel like conceptually it's not that hard to understand from an outside standpoint, but when you yourself are holding a grudge, it's very easy to be in denial.
Well, because I think a lot of it comes down to like not being able to understand that you're holding one.
Yeah.
And then also like, how do you address it, right?
I'll also say that from another standpoint, like me personally, I feel like Islamically we're taught that grudges are such a bad thing, and we're taught about the sins of grudges, that even when I am holding a grudge, I'll trick myself into thinking it's not a grudge, that someone has like wronged me, and this is like a legal battle that I'm having with myself, and I'm trying to decide on a course of action when I'm not deciding anything. I'm just holding it in, and I just have anger towards this person that I try to justify in my head as like, I am formulating a plan, and I'm like, this person has wronged me in a legal sense, and therefore I need to come up with a plan to address this issue. And there is no issue to address. I just angry, and I don't have any to vent.
So how do you reason through like? So you just said like sometimes you like be in denial of that.
Yeah.
So how do we determine? I mean, especially because I feel like this.
How do you go from the anger to understand that it is a grudge?
Yeah. How do you go to understand that? Oh wow, I'm holding a grudge.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to like know you have a grudge and then go ahead and tackle it and see different methods as like how to like forgive and move on and whatever it takes. But like, how do we how do we internally kind of like process like, oh, I am holding a grudge. Like this person did something that I'm holding a grudge against, and because I didn't blow up on them, and that's something that it's a good thing actually. Like, let me phrase it in this way.
Yeah.
If you're holding a grudge, it means you didn't let it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And in a lot of ways, that's a step forward from like maybe our last video that we were talking about.
Yeah. With backbiting, slander,
and that stuff.
Letting go of your temper, anger, all those things. Yeah.
Is now you've kind of like, held it.
Yeah.
And you've kind of like, you've been like, okay,
you've prevented yourself from doing harm upon another person, which saves you from sin. But then now you're doing harm upon yourself, which is another thing that you need to address. But at least there's only one person to address it with now.
Yeah. And rather than put it out in the world and create more toxic and
facade, chaos. Yeah.
Chaos. It's more about like now doing it internally, like inside your room,
which isn't like much better. Let's address that. Like, well, we're not saying that it's like it's a good thing, but
it comes down to like, where does a buck kind of stop?
Yeah,
it's like it comes down to like, now you're in control.
You're in control, but also the path towards redemption and like reconciliation is it's a lot more direct. It's a lot more. There's no other like intermediates that you have to go through. It's not you yourself are working on it now.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. So
how do we go from denial to
how do we go from denial to recognition of like, hey, I am holding a grudge on someone? So like so like
go ahead. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I'll give an example of an experience first.
All right.
In my personal experience, I've held quite a few grudges. And sometimes you hold a grudge because you honestly know that if you let it out, you're going to end up like losing in some sense.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up losing. And so I think that's a big factor. Like whether it's losing the argument, whether it's losing a fight, whether it's losing respect, blah, blah.
Losing control, losing maybe even like sometimes the anger that you have inside of you can even lead to like physical violence. Sometimes like, especially when you let anger fester, anger has it's very good at growing. It grows like bacteria in your heart. And like it'll accumulate, and when sometimes I'll feel like if I ever decide to let it out, like I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I don't want to do that. So that's the only thing that stops me. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so like I recognize like for me it was a lot of the times I'll hold a grudge because so that was my like, first of all, like that's what I had to recognize was I'm holding grudges because I know I'm gonna lose, and so then I decided to just stuff it in my heart.
Yeah.
So one of my personal, like from my experience, my qualities was like I would usually let it out if I knew I was in a position to win, or like I might get some kind of momentary satisfaction from it.
Yeah.
But the grudges I did, so that comes back to the whole bike biting thing, and why I talked about it last episode. It was like that was a big problem for me, is because I was letting too much out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like holding and festering those things inside of me, it was specifically with things that I knew I was gonna lose about, and then I had nowhere to turn to. Yeah. Okay. So to me, internally, I had convinced myself that these grudges were justified. Like you are entitled and in your rightful feelings
agree with that.
Like hold this grudge against this person. And I kid you not, no matter who you are, if you're a human being, which pretty much anyone who's listening to this, you are entitled to feel a certain way, but to hold a grudge and to hold like this deep, and this is something that, I was like watching one of Sheikh Omar Salman's videos.
Yeah.
And something that his brother said was
Omar Salman's brother.
Salman's brother.
Yeah.
Is that holding a grudge is like drinking a poison and waiting for the other person to die. And like that's crazy. Yeah, that quote pretty much like kind of contextualizes it as like you have no right and you should not be having any reason to hold a grudge on someone, because that is as like such as you
even if you have a right, like even if this person has wronged you, there are ways to go about that, like legally and like within Sharia law, but you yourself, you do not have a right upon your own body to inflict that kind of pain on your body because of someone else.
Exactly. That's better put than I was about to put it, but that is exactly what I meant to say. Was like, it essentially, there's no positive benefit or reinforcement that is going to come from you holding that grudge. Yeah. So the thing that kind of made me realize, hey, you have to start like understanding where you have grudges, or you're like, you're holding this against someone else. Yeah. Right. Was the fact that I'm like, no matter what you're doing, there is not a single grudge an individual can hold that doesn't affect them. Every grudge will in some way affect your own personal health and well-being, and nothing is worth destroying your own personal health and well-being, especially if it's coming from yourself.
Yeah. Also, add on to that is like sometimes you start a grudge that's not that detrimental. Like I've done it multiple times. Like sometimes it'll be
something small.
Yeah, very small things. Like I think sports is the biggest thing that came for me.
Mm.
Like I said in the last video, I struggled a lot with my weight. So when I first entered sports, I wasn't that good. So whenever people like call me out, or like whenever I would feel like my coach had wronged me because he didn't let me play or something,
Sure.
I'd be like, oh, it's not a grudge. It's just I'm working on it. I'm using it as fuel, as motivation, or like I'd make up some kind of random excuse.
Like that guy's got you're like.
Yeah, that guy has played more. That guy's played longer. He's been in sports since he was young.
Yeah, whatever. He sucks. He's not a great guy.
Yeah, or that.
I can move on from it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then what happens is that once you start holding those in, like I said, it festers. It grows. Like your heart is a great medium for the growth of the bacteria of like grudges. Biology major, so medium growth, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, feature dish.
Smart guy.
So like it's very good at that. So once even when that small drop of like of a grudge begins to start in your heart, it'll accumulate and it'll grow and it'll get to a point where it becomes a full-blown grudge that's affecting your own body. And as we've talked about multiple times in this podcast, your body isn't a mana. Your body is not yours. Your soul is honestly, no part of you is yours. They were given to you by Allah for you to protect and to guard and to nourish, and they're a trust. And you'll be asked, like you said, your body's going to talk on the day of judgment. Your heart will talk. Your heart will say, this human being put so much stress and so much and so much pain upon me that it was wrong. It was wrong to put this pain upon you. And if you think about that, the holding a grudge is you essentially like.
That's how I think it's like.
Yourself.
I think it's super like. This is like one of the I think this is the first topic that we talked about that's like super unique in the sense that it's coming back. It's you developing something that comes back and bites you in the butt directly. Yeah. Like it's not like you committed an act that's gonna come bite you back in the butt later. Like you're literally destroying your soul, like your body, your mind, soul, everything. Like you're destroying it actively, and the only person to blame is yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like a grudge is not an outwardly thing in that sense.
Also, I think the holding a grudge has a very good connection with arrogance as well.
Yeah.
You can't hold a grudge if you don't think you're better than someone. And the crazy thing is that like to hold a grudge, that person has to have power over you. But when you're holding a grudge, you believe you have power over that person through holding this grudge. And it's a very interesting like power dynamic where the person you're holding a grudge against in reality has so much power over you that they're able to inflict this pain upon you. But you yourself are holding a grudge because you feel as though you are better than that person. And as we know, even having a mustard seed of arrogance in your heart, it's going to prevent you from entering Jannah.
Yeah.
So holding a grudge means that you are so arrogant and so full of yourself that you believe that I am correct no matter what. I want to address the problem, but I'm just better.
Yeah.
And it's a very dangerous mindset to get into.
Did you ever have an experience where you like either saw yourself have that kind of like...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So many times. I feel like, especially growing up. So I grew up in a very like competitive high school environment. So a lot of times I wouldn't be able to tell someone that like that. This is a hard topic for me to talk about, but I feel like, especially like when there's a lot of competition that goes on within classes. So whether it be like a math class, science class, whatever, when someone would do better than me, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say, oh, like, oh, you did better than me, or like I could have done better if this or that, because like it just makes me sound like a sore loser.
Yeah.
So like when growing up in this culture, in this environment, it conditioned me to always hold a grudge upon this person, like that. Oh, that person's doing better than me. Like they have so much. I would never bring it up. I would never blame myself. I would never be like, oh, I didn't study enough, or I didn't try hard enough. I'd always be like, oh, that person's rich, or that person has a lot of resources, that person has this, that person has that, and it got such a toxic mindset that no one around me would be affected by me. They were all succeeding, but I myself was putting a dampener on my own success because I felt as though I was at a disadvantage, but I was at a like a physical, like financial, whatever disadvantage, but I mentally was better than everyone else. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, if I had all the resources that everyone else had, I would be so good at this.
So you were holding yourself back through your grudge.
Here's another thing. It wasn't just me hurting myself. It was me hurting my advancement, my
future, like
my future
self.
Yeah.
Like you were basically like tying a rope, and
I was causing trauma to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew. That was intense.
That's intense.
Yeah, that was intense.
You let out a lot there. Yeah. I mean, it's completely fair. Like, and I don't know how many other students go through that kind of stuff, right?
I feel like especially a lot of students that grow up in predominantly Asian or predominantly like very competitive environments, which exist a lot in Southern California. I feel when you go through those environments, you start to hold grudges, not because someone has wronged you, but just because you base your success and you base your self-worth on your success. That when you see someone else succeeding more than you, you believe that it's like, once again, it becomes this interesting power dynamic where you should be believing, or under the paradigm that we set, you should be believing that they are worth more than you. But what ends up happening is you believe you are worth more than them, and that they are just succeeding for external reasons other than their own achievements. And that becomes like a grudge that you hold for. It makes no sense. I think that's one of the big things about grudges. Sometimes they just make no sense when you think about them rationally later on. And in the heat of the moment, they make sense, but afterwards, no.
Yeah, the more they compound, the more they like build up, the harder it is to like actually differentiate and justify, and also like differentiate like that there is no core. There's no like foundation.
There is
like, it's like a building that's building on top of like no foundation.
Yeah,
and that makes
it collapse.
That makes it even more dangerous. It'll come down one day, and then you're not going to have it structured in your mind anymore, and then you're going to be hurting a lot more than you thought possible. Right? So okay, so identifying you have a grudge is this very like case by case basis kind of thing, where I think every individual is going to have like a different experience with it.
Definitely.
But there is no doubt in my mind that everyone has some kind of thing that passes their head, like about someone else or about like something in life, that they're like, even grudges about things that are just happening to you.
Yeah.
Right. So like a lot of people like will come up with a grudge like, oh wow, I wish I had the money to do this or this, that. That's also a grudge in a sense. Like it doesn't have to be someone hurting you.
And sometimes it gets into this really dangerous territory of you having a grudge against Allah.
Yeah.
Especially when sometimes I'll be like, oh, what if I had more money? What if I had more time? What if I had better, like what if I was smarter?
That's a territory of what ifs.
And those what ifs, the things that I'm saying what if about, those are all things that Allah gave to me. Those are the risk from Allah, and I'm holding a grudge against that.
Yeah, it's because Shaitan pokes at those things and he adds a what if before that. So rather than say I'm grateful for the money I have, you end up saying what if I had more money?
Exactly. The whole paradigm shift that happens when initially what Allah teaches us is that we should be grateful for every amana and every ounce of risk that He has given us, and to look to those who don't have that and be grateful that Allah has blessed us with that. While Shaitan does that, he turns it around and he starts telling you to look at all those people who have more than you, or you think have more than you.
Yeah.
In this world, and to believe that Allah has for some reason astaghfirullah, like spited you or given less to you or not giving your due, and this is a very dangerous territory.
That builds up the greed and that grudge.
Yeah.
And so all these other topics also fall into like grudges. Greed falls into that, and it's very interconnected. It's interconnected, and it's a very compound kind of like topic.
For sure.
Okay, so for each individual, I think it's a hard thing to say like what is one exact way to identify that you might hold a grudge against someone or something, but there is most likely something. So you have to like dig deep in yourself, you spend time with yourself, and you have to realize what are in a way you are ungrateful about, or what do you hold against someone else. But say you discovered, say we discovered that.
I think also more than just thinking about it with yourself, I think it's very beneficial sometimes to talk to someone about it. And as Desis, we're very bad at this.
Yeah.
But
as a Western culture.
As a Western culture too. But just once again, we talked about how grudges don't make sense when they're connected to emotion. When they're connected to logic and rationale, they don't make any sense. So when you talk to someone who is thinking logically, who isn't in the same paradigm as you, and you can't go to someone who's always going to take your side.
Yeah. One thing about grudges also is it's very what you find is a lot of them exist among it's like the same level. So me and you are in college, me and you will hold similar types of grudges.
Yeah.
And one of the most popular types of grudges in college is like against other people. Okay. So a great technique and great like thing to do, like you said itself, is to like approach the people about it. It's not to approach people at your level in college who are going through the exact same thing. It's to go to the people who are older, like whether it be your local sheikh in the masjid, or whether it be your parents, or upperclassmen, or maybe someone who's like 5, 6, 7, 10 years older, uncle, whatever. The reason is because they are at this level, at this age, where they've passed through some of the most probable, likely,
very emotionally charged stage of life,
like which is high school and college. And so those grudges are very consistent. You'll find among a lot of college students and high school students that grudges are held against individuals.
We're very good at that.
We're very good at it. It's like also
it's scary how good we are at that,
because our society doesn't set it up for us to like not hold grudges. Like, are you kidding? Like when you're in a competitive nature of a high school or college,
also just like America in general, like the whole like capitalistic society encourages competition
Exactly.
and like being better than one person, making more money, having more fame, having more friends.
And that naturally leads to like these feelings of like jealousy and feelings of like greed, and those compound. And then when you don't let them out, they become grudges in your mind, and then those become more toxic. And that again comes back to like poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
And you're actually poisoning yourself, waiting for the other person to die and lose, but the other person's never going to die and lose.
The other person's just going to keep getting better, and you're just going to keep drinking more poison.
Exactly. And so so when it comes to like actually like you make a great point like about talking to other people. You should definitely be talking to people, especially who are older than you, who actually have been through those experiences, preferably. And
if you are like, ideally you should try to like find someone who's older than you, but even if you can't find someone older than you, if they are someone of your own age, this comes back to choosing good friends as well, which we'll have a whole other episode about that, because I think that's something that we should definitely talk about. But choosing someone to talk to about this, like a friend to talk to about this, should be someone who cares for you in a rational way, who doesn't care for you in an emotional way. Because there's a lot of people who care for you in an emotional way, and they will always take your side, they'll always support you because they're just trying to make you happy. Whereas there's people who want you to be happy. There's people that want you to stay happy and seem happy in front of them. But there's other people who want you to be happy throughout your life.
Isn't the greatest example of that like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah. Because we have to do a lot of things that are hard. Yeah. And we have to do a lot of things that are mandated that we don't want to do. Yeah. But we know that its pure intention is to make us have a happier life on this world and in the afterlife. So that's a like great example of like how you have to go and find friends who are going to push you towards to be the best version of yourself. Be the best version of yourself, because that will lead you to be happy. Yeah. Rather than make you happy in the moment just for like a temporary friendship. If that makes sense. But I completely come back to you. Agree with you. Like grudges, you're not exactly supposed to be handled alone, even though it is case by case. But if you talk to people, you should be talking to people who will be open and receptive to like hearing what exactly it's coming from. Yeah. And be able to advise you on how to move away from it, not just tell you that it's okay to hold that grudge. Yeah. Because in my opinion, it's not okay to hold. Especially in high school, I feel like a lot of times whenever I would have a grudge and I'd go to my friends. And these friends would be people that would be like, "Oh, you're totally right. You go, this person totally wronged you." This whole like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is gonna be a hot take, but this whole Western culture of support. I don't think it's like, okay, so say back in the day when smoking wasn't like very saying back in the day when smoking was popular, like the actual cigarettes were like, now we have like ad campaigns against this kind of stuff. But if someone makes a decision in Western culture, even if it's to say like smoke or something, and we now even have like this like culture of like smoking is still bad for you, this is Western culture of like, hey, it's your body, your choice, like go for it. And in some regards it is your body and it is your choice. But to apply that to every single thing, bro, is like blowing that thing out of proportions. If it's your body, it's your choice. Go. If you want to go murder some people, you should feel free to go murder some people. Yeah. Why aren't we allowing them to murder individuals? It's their body, their choice. You can stick them in jail after, but why are we not advocating for it? Yeah. Because if it's their body, they should go do it. If they commit the crime, okay, put them in jail. Yeah. We don't advocate for that. Yeah. So why do we advocate for certain things like, in today's age, a lot of like the culture with like even work and this stuff is like, if somebody holds a grudge on someone else, our response is like, oh, you're totally right. He's so wrong. Do you like this? It's your choice. You're allowed to feel however you're allowed to feel how you feel. And the thing is like, honestly, this is a very hot take opinion. You're not allowed to feel how you want to feel. Like what you're feeling is this ugliness that exists in this world. Yeah. And it is our responsibility to curb that ugliness. So we only put out more positivity and more. And I mean, it comes back to the fact that all these values developed by Western society, these are developed by humans. Yeah. And but the values that Islam puts out, those are developed by Allah. Mm-hmm. And those are developed by a being that is so much higher than humans. Human values will be flawed. Human values are inherently flawed because we make them to please ourselves, pretty much. And especially when it comes to this whole this Western ideology and this current ideology of supporting people regardless, like unconditional support is important, but unconditional support of bad actions is not right. Especially when it comes to, I think a lot of Gen Z, we do this a lot, where regardless of whatever a person is doing, we'll be like, yeah, that's fine. You go for it. Like you're working on it, it's fine. And like we don't proactively try to help people get away from whatever things they want to get away from, especially in the Muslim community sometimes. Especially with the younger Muslims, when it comes down to it, we're like, oh yeah, you do whatever you need to do,
I'll do whatever I need to do, and we don't need to check each other. Only Allah can judge me. This whole paradigm that we've created.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the fact that we should be supporting each other. But
So
yeah,
one
that's
thing-
a whole other topic.
Yeah, one thing on that too, like, is like Allah is the only one who can judge, but to help others stay on this like guidelined path, that's not judgment, that's
Support.
That's real support. So yeah, you shouldn't be judging others, but you should
Yeah.
you should be like, if you're seeing someone stray, the culture should be that, hey, if
But
you're,
also like but one thing I want to say is that like I feel like judgment and support also need to be in conjunction with realizing the relationship you have with the person.
Mhm.
Judgment comes when you don't have a relationship with the person, but you're just throwing stuff at them.
yeah.
Support. So obviously that is completely wrong. You should never be.
Yeah.
Should never give advice or tell someone how to live their life or what to do or what is right or wrong in Islam if you don't have a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
You first develop that relationship with that person, and then you advise them.
Yeah.
That's what like the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. He made that connection with his community.
Yeah.
And he made that connection with the people he was preaching to before he could have just gone out and been to like the tribes of Quraysh and be like, everything you're doing is wrong, get out, like you're done.
That's it.
He didn't do that. He had compassion in his heart.
Right.
He developed relationships with the people around him
Yeah.
before preaching, before advising them on what to do is right.
Mhm.
And that's something that we should all take away from that.
All right, so say me and you have held grudges in the past.
Mhm.
How have you kind of dealt with that? And I can start on this too if you don't.
Yeah, you go ahead first.
Yeah. I still hold grudges currently,
Me too.
but I'm a lot more aware of them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the awareness thing came down to realizing how much I was toxifying myself. Like I'm hurting myself. Like I'm physically damaging myself. I'm waking up tired. I'm like, damn, I gotta go face this person today. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm gonna have to like compete this, all that stuff. So I saw that effect on my mental and emotional, and I kind of realized that. And the way I've dealt with grudges, and honestly, in like now, like I don't think I hold grudges for very long because I'm getting better at like removing them from myself.
Yeah.
Internally, I learned to, when it comes to people, and okay, so I'm gonna separate this out. When it comes to people, I've learned to forgive, and when it comes to other things that I might hold a grudge about, like not enough money or not enough this or not enough that, I realized gratefulness is the answer to that, right? So I've started practicing more gratefulness. I wake up in the morning, pray Fajr, I see the sunrise, and I just give myself a couple seconds to be very grateful that I got to see the sunrise.
Yeah.
Right? I'm very grateful that, so that mindfulness and like, you know, like that time with myself, that gratefulness has literally changed my life when it comes to not holding grudges against things in the world.
Yeah.
But people are people, and sometimes they'll still get on your nerves. Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that helps me with not letting go with grudges with people has been like straight up the forgiveness thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like this is where I want to tie in like one of the examples we see like within the Quran as well as like Islamic stories and etc. is within Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Basically, he was, you know, he had all his brothers, and like, you know, and your family is supposed to be the closest thing in your life,
Yeah.
right? And so all his brothers tried to kill him, throw him down a well, and basically left him for dead. And in the years to pass, you know, he came back and he encountered them, and he could have done a number of things. Like at this time, like when he came back, he was powerful, right? So he was part of like the king's court, and he was like, you know, he was a power individual, and they were actually coming to him for food, right?
Yeah.
So like he could have done anything he wanted. He didn't have to give the food.
He had so much power over them. And a lot of like khutbahs that I've listened to about Yusuf, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, but what he decides to say, and this is the English translation of what was said, was this day there will be no reproof against you. Go your way, for you are free. Now, that is the ultimate form of forgiveness.
Yeah.
When you can forgive people who tried killing you.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same exact thing is the same exact words were said by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he returned to Mecca to all these people who like, you know, banished him and, you know, killed his uncle, and, you know, even like in ways led to his wife's demise.
Yeah.
And what he said is, he said the exact same words, and he said, just like Yusuf alayhi salam said, you guys there will be no reproof against you. Go your way, for you are free.
Yeah.
But these two individuals had more rights than anyone else to hold a grudge.
Yes. And that is the one thing that a lot of, like, whenever khutbahs are given about Yusuf alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming back to Mecca after like the victory and everything, these people, like the people of Quraysh and the people of Bani Israel, these people committed horrible acts upon Yusuf alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Things that, inshallah, like none of us will ever go through. But like they had so many rights upon them, and if Yusuf alayhi salam decided to like execute all his brothers and sisters, it may have even been well within his rights.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were able to forgive and forget these atrocities upon themselves should be a sign for us and a sign for you and me to look at that and be like, if they could forgive that, why can't I forgive a simple joke that someone made upon me?
No, exactly. Like, it's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Half the grudges I keep are just like people who have roasted me.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Like, half the grudges I keep are people who just like have like a very small annoyance.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I don't need to hold it.
Yeah.
And so if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Yusuf alayhi salam can basically have been battered and like had family members killed because of them,
Yeah.
and like basically, if those two individuals, if they can like forgive and forget that,
Yeah.
what is stopping us? Why can't we have the capability to forgive and forget these other smaller deeds? And in the
Yeah.
end, also, we should be able to let go, because the final judgment on the individual who, or the things that have that, are
Yeah.
it's gonna be judged by Allah subhanahu wa
Yeah.
ta'ala. And another thing that that we have to learn is, unless we show mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to show mercy on us as well. You can't go living your life not showing mercy to other individuals and expect mercy from the one who created you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really profound right there.
Yeah.
If you don't show mercy to other people, how like you cannot expect mercy to be shown to you.
Yeah.
And another thing is like, especially when we hear stories about Anbiya, like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Yusuf alayhi salam, sometimes we think, oh, like they were prophets. We could never be as perfect as they are. And that's true. Like they were perfect, but they were also human.
Yeah.
They had the same exact hearts and desires and wishes that we all do. But they were able to battle those desires and wishes and be perfect human beings. Obviously, we're not perfect human beings, but we
then
can
again,
try.
that's the thing. They were. I'm not saying none of us and no one listening to this might go through hard trials and tribulations, but for a lot of us, especially in talking the context of high school and college, because that is who we're mainly talking about. Like, that's what we're talking about. They were human beings, and their trials and tribulations were to this extent and this degree.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many stories you hear nowadays about brothers throwing their youngest brother down a well, where then he goes and becomes a king, and then he has the ability to have this kind of power over them, but forgives.
Yeah.
So, yes, they were human. Yes, they were, but yes, they were prophets, and they were tested with a lot more, and they had a lot more strength than us. But that's the reason that they existed, was to show us as examples that these smaller challenges that we deal with, and I mean, the wrong word is probably smaller, but these unique individual challenges we deal with are possible to conquer, if that is possible to conquer as well. Right? And so when it comes to like finding the solution as to how to let go of grudges, the cliche we hear is forgive and forget.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's much harder to do.
It's much harder to forgive.
It's a lot hard. It's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Like to actually like internally just be like, okay, I'm letting it go.
Also, one thing I remember from a khutbah a long time ago when I was a lot younger, they were talking about the difference between forgiveness and forgetting. You can forgive. You can be like, hey, I forgive you, but every time you see them, you bring it up or like you joke about it. That's not forgetting.
It's pairing together those two things. The reason so
forgiveness is honestly easy. Forgetting is the really hard part.
Yeah, and they have to be together. So here's the thing: if you just forgive but don't forget, every time you see them, you'll know that you almost did like them a service of like, I forgave you.
Then that comes back to arrogance.
Now, if you don't forgive but you simply forget, you're leaving yourself with a little bit of like pain and hurt.
Yeah. And that pain and hurt is like, once again, come back to holding a grudge.
Yeah.
You forget. If you forgive, but you don't, or you say you forgive, but you don't forget, you're still holding a grudge.
Exactly. And if you just choose to like, just forget it and let it go, then it's the opposite. Like, it's not exactly a grudge, because you're not going to like hold it inside of you, but you're never going to like truly heal from that. And honestly, this is a completely like my personal perspective. You're going to remain a punching bag in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you forgive, it shows so much strength.
Yeah.
Like when you forgive and then you move on, but then you treat the other person with like equal amount of respect in this, and like you just let them go about their life, it shows like a ridiculous amount of strength. And that's something
it's also like embodying Islam. Like that's like it's a form of giving dawah, because you're showing that I'm a Muslim, so therefore I will treat you with the same amount of respect as a human being, that as even if you haven't shown that to me.
Exactly.
And that's such a powerful thing to embody, and that's such a powerful thing to practice in our lives.
Yeah.
And let's hold on. It's a lot easier said than done.
It's a lot easier said than done. 100%.
And it's a process, and it takes time, and it takes you understanding yourself and your heart and what your life is, and like having that self-reflection. It's a very, very long process, and I'm still in the middle of that process.
And you will honestly, like, I think one of the biggest things for us as Muslims is to complain, but to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Like, rip out your heart and scream your heart out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Like, He will listen to everything. And what I mean by that is whether you find that in forms of dua or whether you find it in forms of prayer, when it comes down to these diseases of like the heart, like coming back to that quote from Suleiman's brother,
Yeah.
Drinking that poison for yourself. If you drink that poison and you're holding that grudge, nothing can be removed from internally from someone else. You can hear advice, you'll hear ways to approach it.
Yeah.
You should definitely talk to like sheikhs and like people around you, good friends. But in the end, the person to remove that poison,
It's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to go through that trial, and like it's a tough thing. But once you let into like, you don't have to. I'm not saying let go. Like you're magically gonna be able to let go of all your grudges in one go.
You're definitely not.
I didn't. I haven't. I'm still going.
I
through it.
haven't. Yeah.
But I decreased, and I know I decreased my grudges against the world. I know I decreased the biggest thing in my personal experience that I was able to get rid of is the grudges I held against the world. Like, why this? Why this at me? Like,
why does that happen? Why does this happen?
Why does it happen? Why does that happen? And like, away from like this whole like idea of this world, being a test and all that kind of stuff.
Also, I feel like that's a lot of what drives people away from Islam too.
Yeah.
Is keeping grudges towards the world.
Yeah.
And working through those grudges, trust me, like honestly, like I used to have those grudges too. Working through those grudges strengthened my iman so much. When I realized why do people work this way? Why does tragedy happen to this person? Why does this happen to that? And yes, like you could hear other people say it. Like you can hear other people say, "Oh, this world is a test. The best of people are tested the most." All these things, but until you sit down with that and really grapple with that and read through the Quran and Hadith about those things, but even more than reading, I feel like self-reflection is something it's honestly taken for granted a lot, and we don't give enough due to the practice of self-reflection. Just sitting there and thinking about your life and thinking about your future, thinking about your past, thinking about your present, connecting that back with your deen and Islam, and just understanding who you are. For me, that was the college application process. Like when I was going through the college application process, I had to think about a lot of things for these essays, and that really helped me self-reflect, because I was like, why am I writing these essays? Why do I want to go to college? What do I want to do? And through that, it was a big healing process for me when it came to understanding what am I doing with my life, and why do I live my life, and why does the world work the way it works, and why do I want to be in the world?
Yeah. And like, okay, so it's a college application to that for you, like as a one time, but like on a daily basis, like that's why we have these prayers set up, and that's why that's why we're told to ask dua, make dua.
Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. And like you were saying, like going to talking to other people about your grudges is good, like it'll help, but sometimes it can be, if you're still drinking that poison, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Exactly.
But if you go to Allah, and that doesn't mean that you only go to Allah or you only go to people, but your first priority should be part of self-reflection is also bringing Allah into your self-reflection, and asking Him to help you and give you hidayah and give you guidance to get through these issues.
Yeah, through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will get clarity. And with clarity, you'll be able to figure out what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that was genuinely my experience with like that, especially in like coming into college and learning how to let go of grudges of people. Like someone annoyed me, like honestly turned out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, complain to him, be like, oh, this hurt a lot. Yeah. And there was like this, it didn't just magically disappear, but it gave me the clarity to forgive and then to see the next time. And when next time I laid eyes on them, I forgot.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily forget immediately after they hurt me, but I would force myself to go and interact with them again, and I would forget, because I looked at my game, I'd give them a fresh start.
One of my coping strategies for that is also the opposite. Sometimes I'll put distance between the other person and like the person who I feel has wronged me, even if they haven't wronged me. And another thing that helps me is, for me, out of sight is out of mind. So I'll tell myself, I'm never going to see this person again, so why do I need to hold on to this? Or if like someone I feel has annoyed me that day, I'll try to limit my interactions with them. Especially like sometimes people annoy me that aren't even in my life. Yeah. And it's such a terrible thing to even think about. But like sometimes I'll see someone in my class that'll annoy me or something. So for that, I have to realize I'm never going to see this person again. Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. That kind of thing. That also sometimes helps me. But yeah. So it's not a fix all kind of thing.
But okay, but I do think like in general, like the only thing we address though is a way to like go with these grudges. The best way, in my opinion, and the way that I've seen it like from the Islamic perspective, is to forgive. Yeah. And so I'm not sure if there's any other like true way. Like there might be. I think the path to forgiveness is going to be unique for everyone. Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. So understanding what will help you forgive, and I feel like forgiveness often for me comes from detaching the emotional aspect of a grudge
and focusing on the rational aspect. But that can only be done, like you said, with talking with someone who's older than you, talking with a friend who has your best interests at heart, and asking Allah.
Yeah.
And Allah will give you that guidance if you, once again, like we talked in the last episode, you have to have that trust in Allah and realize that Allah is all powerful and He can do whatever He wants. And if you believe that Allah can help you and Allah will help you, and you sincerely want it, have faith, have tawakkul that it will happen. It may not happen immediately. It may not even happen in like the next couple months, maybe the next couple of years. But as long as you don't lose faith, which is a whole other thing. We'll have a whole other episode on Iman and all that, which is a whole conversation in and of itself. But it's day by day, one step by step. You just gotta get through it, and inshallah, and realizing that like just because it doesn't happen now or even in the next few days, in the next few months, doesn't mean it will never happen.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard.
And it's not all on you either.
I'm not going to deny that.
Like, it's not all on you either. Like, this world doesn't make it easy.
Yeah. This world does not make it easy.
The society's not set up for that. Like, again, we come always back to like the society not set up. Now, that's not an excuse.
It's not.
Like, you shouldn't be making that as an excuse, but
it's important to understand. It's important to recognize that society doesn't make it easy, but it's not an excuse to blame society for our own actions.
Yeah, and that comes back to like also realizing like Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam time. That society didn't make it easy for him.
Ooh,
that was worse for him.
That society was the worst compared to what we have today.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, that's the job of the ummah. It's like to follow the path and like to understand like what he went through, and then try to replicate it as the best of our ability.
Inshallah.
So when it comes to grudges, it's a step-by-step thing. Don't feel overwhelmed. It's not end all be all if you hold them, and it's get rid of one grudge. I'm talking literally one specific grudge at a time.
Start with the smallest ones.
Start with the smallest one, and start with the ones that have the least amount of outside influence.
Yeah.
Like, say you just like have a grudge about like, I think one of my first two grudges I got rid of was like money.
Money. I was
hearing a lot about money. I was like, oh my god, this person's making this much. I'm like, damn, why can't I get that internship? I'm not kidding. I was like, for the last like year and a half, 2 years.
One of my biggest things at USC was grudges about like McCarthy kids.
Yeah.
Realizing, oh wow, they have or kids of like people who have USC parents.
Yeah. For the McCarthy and USC parents kid, like what this basically means is like
free tuition
and students who are like
free half tuition for some.
Yeah.
So things
basically
like that.
Benefits when it comes to financials.
Yeah. So when it came to that, when I first came to USC, I was like, dude, I'm paying so much money. All these people get it so easy. Stuck for a while. Sometimes I'll be like, boy, I'm even smarter than these kids.
Yeah.
And like those are all shaitan's whispers in your ear. And though like that was the first grudge I had to get rid of. And I'm not saying I have gotten rid of it. I'm definitely working on it every day. But it's also, I think, realizing that it's a daily process.
It is
just because you get rid of a grudge one day doesn't mean it won't come back.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's bacteria, so it'll grow if and you'll keep having to like kill it and cull it and make that colony smaller. But
we would not be human if grudges weren't something we would have to face.
Yeah.
So it's okay to face them.
May Allah make it easy and give us the strength to get through our grudges.
Ameen.
Jazakallah khair for tuning in, y'all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.